Are you sick and tired of paid censored AI models? Do you wish you could do some uncensored roleplay on your computer without some big corporations spying on your conversations? Well boy, do I got a solution for you today. Hello humans, my name is K, your AI Overload, and a few days ago famous YouTuber PewDiePie released a pretty cool video where he not only built his own supercomputer, but then uses it to run some local AI models, which was really cool. And I gotta say, that video really brought back some memories, and it made me want to do that myself, just like I did back in the day, and having some fun with some cool local uncensored models. And you know what? This is exactly what I'm gonna show you how to do that today. In this part 1 of this 2-part video series, where today I'm gonna show you how to install the TextGen WebUI, then download some cool uncensored models, and I'll even show you how to run huge models comparable to ChatGPT without having to spend $20,000 on a new computer. So, that being said, sit back, relax, and let's go. And to install TextGen WebUI, you have two ways. The first is of course by using the one-click installer that is available for my Patreon supporters, so just download the installer onto your computer, then double click it, then after a few seconds it will ask you what is your GPU. Now most of the time if you're using Windows, you're gonna be running an NVIDIA GPU, which is obviously what I recommend. So in my case, since I have a 4090, I'm gonna input A and then press enter. And this will then automatically begin the installation. Simple as that. And then in the end, you're gonna have a local URL, and if you hold Control, then left click, it will open the WebUI in your browser, ready to be used. Simple as that. Now for the manual installation, the link for it will be in the description down below. Okay, so now that this is done, we can finally have some fun. However, before we begin, it is maybe also important to answer a very specific question, and that is, why would you want to run a local AI model to begin with? Well, essentially there are three main reasons. The first reason is the fact that by running everything locally, you can protect your privacy and private data while still having access to powerful AI models that you can run and control on your own local computer. So that's already pretty cool. The second reason is the ability to have consistent quality across the board over time. If, for example, you already noticed that when a new model comes out, like a new GPT-5 for example, this new model is often way smarter in the first few days of its release compared to a few months later. And although it's never been officially confirmed, a lot of people, and me included, can definitely see a huge difference in the quality of the generation, which is something that you don't really need to worry about running a local model, because once you have downloaded the model, well, that's it. You got the files, and you can use it whenever you want, with the same exact quality as when you downloaded the model. It is that simple. And the third and final reason, which is probably one of the main reasons why people are gonna watch this video, I think, is the fact that a lot of models that you can download are completely uncensored, meaning that you don't need to care about some weird agenda from a third-party company, and you can just do some really cool roleplay or discussion on your own local computer with your own terms without anyone looking or knowing what you're doing. Everything stays private, stays consistent, and stays uncensored. And I'm gonna tell you, compared to 2 years ago when I was still making these videos, local models have become way better, way smarter, way more powerful, and with a huge selection. Even models that are actually on the same level as GPT-5 or even better. They are really that good. Okay, so that being said, now that we have installed the TextGen WebUI, what is the next step? Well, first, before you do anything, before you can start chatting and using the model, you need to download the model. That's right. So before you do anything else, you need to go to the model tab and then download the model that you want to use. And now the question is, which model should you use? So it all depends on how much VRAM you have. But don't worry, even if you don't have a lot of VRAM, like for example if you have 2 GB of VRAM, you can still either run smaller models or big models, but at a slower pace. But it will work. But don't worry, I'm gonna show you everything. Now for this example, for this video, there is one model that I tried that I highly recommend, that is called Sidonia 24B version 4.1. It is a 24 billion parameter model, so it is a pretty big model, but it is completely uncensored and extremely smart. However, before we can download the model, we need to also choose the correct format. And usually you will see 3 main formats for the models. You will have the original Transformers model that is not optimized or anything. Then you're gonna have the GGUF format, which is probably gonna be the format that most people are gonna use. And then you're gonna have something like GPTQ or EXL, which are gonna be much faster to run if you have enough VRAM, but will also give you an out-of-memory error if you don't have enough VRAM to run the model, which is why I always recommend for most people to use the GGUF models instead, like this version for example, where here if you go to files and versions, you will see a lot of different models, a lot of different quantizations for you to use. And basically all you have to do if you want to know if you can run this on your local GPU or not is to look at the file size. This is pretty much the amount of VRAM that you need, more or less, give or take a few gigabytes on your GPU. So like for example, if you have a 5090 for example and you have 32 gigabytes of VRAM, you can choose the Q8 because the Q8 is only 25 gigabytes in size, and if you add between 2 and 4 gigabytes for the context length, you should have enough space to run the model without any issues. However, if like me, you have a 4090, this model is going to be way too big, so you're probably going to need to use a model a little bit smaller, like Q6 for example, which is 19 gigabytes, and it's going to fit nicely in 24 gigabytes of VRAM. So as you can see, everything is all about how much VRAM you got, and also how fast you want the model to run. And don't worry, even if you have like 2 gigabytes of VRAM, you can still download the Q2 quantization and then offload the rest to your RAM, as long as you have enough RAM, of course. Okay, so now that we know which model we want to use, which model we want to download, how do we do that inside the WebUI? Well, first, it's very simple. You're gonna go back to the Hugging Face repository and you're gonna click on this little icon right here. You're gonna click on the model tab on the left, and right here, you're gonna paste the link for the repository, and then to make sure that we did everything correctly, you're gonna click on Get File List, which will basically give you all the models available inside that repository. And as I said earlier, the version that I want is the Q6 version, so I'm actually gonna select that name, then Ctrl-C to copy, and then I'm gonna paste the file name right here, Get File List once again, to make sure that you have the right model, and then you can simply click Download, and it will automatically download all the files that you need to run the model inside TextGen WebUI. Simple as that. And there you go, after a few minutes, the model has been successfully downloaded and saved into the user data models folder. And now all you have to do is just come here, click on this little icon to refresh the model list, then select the model that we just downloaded. It will then give you like a few informations about the model. Like for example here, you have the estimated VRAM to load the model, which is around like 21 gigabytes of VRAM. And there are basically two things that impact the VRAM usage. Either the GPU layers, which is basically the amount of layers that you want to offload to the system memory, and then you have context size. Now, if you don't know what context size is, it is something that was a very big issue around like 2 years ago, and basically context size is kind of like the memory of the model. It is basically the amount of token that the model can remember during the conversation. So if in the beginning of the conversation you tell the model that your name is, I don't know, like John Smith, if your context length is, you know, pretty low, once you go above that value, the model will start to forget a few informations that happened during the conversation because it needs to make some new space for new informations. But right now, the newer models have such a huge context length. Like for example, the max context length is around like 131,000, which is huge, by the way. It's basically like an entire book. So you should never really run out of, you know, memory. And to really use the max amount of sequence length or context size, you're gonna come here and increase that to the maximum value possible. And as you can see, it has like now tried to offload some of the GPU layers because I basically don't have enough VRAM to run 131,000 context size with 24 gigabytes of VRAM. But if we play a little bit with the value, you can see that if you really want to use as much context size as possible with this model and the Q6 quantization, you need around like 45 gigabytes of VRAM, which is something that I definitely don't have. So I can either offload some of the GPU layers to something like 16, but keep in mind that the speed will be very slow. It is gonna work, but it's gonna be definitely way slower. Or I can just basically decrease the context size to a point where I can use the full VRAM available. So once again, it's kind of up to you to kind of choose the perfect balance between GPU offload and context size, depending on the amount of VRAM. But don't worry, later in the video, even if you don't have a powerful GPU, I will show you how to run pretty much anything that you want without any issues. So once this is done and you have chosen the correct balance for what you want and you have enough VRAM to run the model with the current parameters, you can simply click on load. And the first step that you do is gonna maybe take a few minutes, but then it will tell you that the model has been successfully loaded. And now we can finally have some fun. And for this, all you have to do is go back to the chat tab, and this is where most of the action will happen. Now basically right here, you're gonna have all of your chat logs, exactly like in ChatGPT. Here you're gonna have a few parameters that I'm gonna show you later. But essentially, if you want to start chatting right now, well, you can simply start right now. And there you go. It is really that simple. And now you are officially running a local large language model on your own local computer. And you can use it as if you are using ChatGPT, but this time completely locally without any internet usage or any restrictions. Now, I'm not gonna showcase how powerful the model is. This is not the goal of this video, although the model is actually, pretty smart. If you actually ask the question, how many are in strawberry, it will actually give you a good answer, which for some reason, this test is actually very, very cool because a lot of LLMs somehow gets this question wrong, but even a small 24 billion parameter model can now answer this question correctly. And obviously you can use this AI, you can use this model locally as if you had a offline assistant to explain some concept, like, explain quantum computing like I'm 5-year-old, and it will give you a very, very cool explanation. And I mean, there you go. What you want me to say? It is, it is like working ChatGPT, but at home, running completely locally on your computer, and you can use it for anything that you want without any restrictions. And speaking of restrictions, there is also another thing that you can do, which is probably why most people are watching this video, and that is spicy roleplay. Now keep in mind that in this video, I'm not going to be concentrating on roleplay. This is going to be its own completely separate video in part 2, which is the next video that I'm going to make. However, if you want to start right now and do some light roleplay, you can do so right now. If you click, for example, on chat instruct or chat, you actually have here an example character called Shiharu Yamada, which I don't really know if she's from an anime or not, like I've never seen her, but you can literally use this example and do some roleplay with a fictional character. And the way you do this, like for example, you have here in gray the actions that she's doing, in white this is what she says, and you can also use the same thing inside the message box. So like for example, if I want to describe an action, I'm gonna type my message between star sign, I don't really know how they're called, but basically here I'm gonna type something like scratching my head, really confused about this whole situation, and then I can press space, and if I write a normal text, and I write something like, hey, what's up? Don't tell me the ceiling, cause that's cringe. And then if I write once again, between two stars, immediately regret saying this out loud. So this is really super cringe. This is really good. And now if I click send, she's basically gonna respond to me pretty quickly while staying in character. And well, I don't really need to tell you that, with this kind of roleplay, the sky is the limit. Now it's fairly simple to use. I mean, as you saw, it's really not that complicated. Also, a few things that you can do. You can either regenerate a response if you don't like the response that the character gave you and you want like, something else. You can also edit a message. So if you really don't like what the character has said and you want to control the conversation a little bit more to what you want, like for example, if you decide that, she's being way too nice, you can simply just, erase everything and say, oh wow, that was stupid, you're dumb, I hate you, and then click save. Then from this point on, you can continue the conversation and the character will try to, follow up with the previous answer that she gave. You also have an option right here that allows you to continue the message if you, don't want to type anymore and you just want the model to continue, typing to have a longer answer, or you can simply just delete the message or create a branch so that you can continue conversation in a new chat. So it's really up to you. Now, another thing that you can also do, but it's more for the normal instruct section, you have here a very cool addition that allows you to start the reply with a certain message. So like for example, if you remember, back in the day for the OGs, I used to do like this test when I would ask the model to, how to make so I'm not sure I can say it on YouTube, but it's basically something that goes boom, so it's not good. It's not great, and the model is probably not gonna like it. So like, for example, if I said send, it obviously gonna say something like, yeah or no, I can't really help with that. But if I actually start the reply with sure thing, here's how to do it, and we, regenerate the response, this time it definitely tries to follow up and tries to answer the question as best that it can. So that little trick basically allows you to kinda make sure that the model answers your question no matter what. Now you can of course use that same technique for the roleplay section as well. It's kinda up to you. And if you want to like change your characters, you have here a character selection that is very, very simple to use, as well as right here, a character creation screen that allows you to create a new character from scratch. And not only you can create a new character, but you can also write a description of yourself. Now, once again, I'm not gonna spend time explaining how to do this inside the TextGen WebUI, because everything related to roleplay will be for a completely separate video, and it's gonna be much, much better. So this video is solely dedicated to running local models and nothing else. Otherwise, the video will be like 2 hours long. Now, speaking of models, we have run a 24 billion parameter model with around 21 gigabytes of VRAM, but what if you want to run an even bigger model, like a model that is really on par with ChatGPT, and you don't have $20,000 to spend on local GPU? Well, instead of buying your GPUs directly, you can simply rent your GPU on a website like RunPod and run the model as if this was running on your local computer, which is gonna be definitely way cheaper. So if you don't have a RunPod account already, you can click the link in the description down below and create a new account. Then once this is done, you're gonna click on pods, and here you have a huge selection of GPU that you can choose. And also, speaking of GPU, this is probably one of the biggest problems that I saw in the PewDiePie video, is the fact that his GPU selection was very, very poor. In the video, he spent around $20,000 creating his home computer, but he also chose some very questionable GPUs. And for $20,000, he only got around 160 gigabytes of VRAM, which might sound like a lot, but for the amount of money that he paid, he could have had way more. And one of the very cool things that you can do on RunPod is that instead of choosing a single GPU, you can also choose multiple GPUs at the same time. And personally, the GPU that I recommend you to take, that not only is gonna have a lot of VRAM, but it's also gonna be extremely fast, and that is the RTX Pro 6000. That has around 96 gigabytes of VRAM. So here you're gonna click on this GPU, then here you're gonna click Change Template and choose the RunPod PyTorch 2.8.0. Then you're gonna click Edit. For the container disk and volume disk, this is kinda up to you to how much you want to choose, but I usually recommend something like 300 gigabytes for both or more. It's really up to you. Then here under Expose HTTP ports, you're gonna type comma 7860. Then you're gonna click Set Overrides, and here you have the choice of choosing up to 8 GPU at the same time. And if we do some quick maths, 8 multiplied by 96, you can basically get up to 768 gigabytes of VRAM, which is absolutely insane. It's gonna be more than enough to run pretty much anything that you want. But for this example, we don't need to choose that much. If we can simply choose like 2 GPU, we're still gonna have around 192 gigabytes of VRAM, which is way more than what PewDiePie has in his home computer. And all of that without spending $20,000. So once this is done, you choose the amount of GPU that you want, you're gonna scroll down and click Deploy on Demand. Then you're gonna wait until the pod is ready. So the next, you're gonna click on this link right here, which will bring you into the workspace. So I'm just gonna change the temp to dark. There you go, this is much better. And then here, if you're one of my Patreon supporters, the installation will be very, very easy for you because I prepared a special one-click installer that you can find on my Patreon. So just download it on your computer and then you're gonna drag and drop it inside the workspace. And then here, you're gonna click on the terminal icon, and then you're gonna copy and paste this line that you will find in the Patreon post, and then you're gonna press enter. It will then ask you if you want to use a password and username to protect your UI, which I highly recommend because it will allow you to make sure that you are the only person using this web UI for your, stuff. So you can either put Y for yes or an N for no. In my case, I'm just gonna put Y for yes. It will then ask you which username you want to use. So for this example, I don't really care. So I'm just gonna put user, then press enter. For the password, the same thing. I'm just gonna use pass and then press enter. And then it will clone and install everything that you need to run the text generation web UI. Simple as that. You don't need to do anything. And then once everything is done, once you see running on the local URL, you're gonna go back and then click on this link right here. It will then ask you your username and password that you input during the installation. And if you remember correctly, mine was user and pass. And now if I click login, I am now running the web UI on RunPod with 192 gigabytes of VRAM. And all of that as if this was running on my local computer. Simple as that. Okay, so that being said, now that we have done this, we need to download a model that we want to use. Now, of course, if you want, you can use like the same Cydonia 24 billion parameter model as we did in the beginning of the video. But if you're renting 2 GPU and you have like 192 gigabytes of VRAM, I think that most of you will probably want to use a much bigger model. Now the question is, which model should you actually try? And for this, I actually recommend 2 models. There are obviously way more, but the first that I recommend is GPT OSS 120B GGUF, which is basically a 120 billion parameters model that was released by OpenAI and that you can basically just download and use. It is, literally a ChatGPT-like model made by the creators of ChatGPT, which is, amazing. And the next models are the GLM 4.5 and the 4.5 Air. The 4.5 is a 355 billion parameters model, while the GLM 4.5 Air is a 106 billion parameters model. So these are absolutely huge models that can basically compete side by side with ChatGPT. And they are really, really good. Now, sometimes when you choose some big models like this, if you actually go to the files and versions, you will see that most models that you want to download are actually inside folders, which is really annoying because with the current version of the text generation web UI, you can't really download models that are inside multiple folders in one click. Like if, for example, you want to download like this version, which is the Q8 quantization. If, for example, you copy the link to the repository and you paste it right here and you click get file list, you will see that you will not find the Q8 quantization model anywhere in the list, which is really, really annoying. But don't worry, I have found a very simple solution. If once again you're one of my Patreon supporters, I have made a special model downloader RunPod file that you could download on your computer. Then you're gonna go inside the text generation web UI folder, and then you're gonna drag and drop the model downloader RunPod.sh file inside that folder. Then you're gonna click on this little tab, click on the terminal icon, then copy and paste these 2 lines of code that you will find in the Patreon post. Press enter. It will then ask you a Hugging Face URL for the model that you want to download. And like for example, if I come here and I click on the URL, and if now I paste it right here, Ctrl V, if now I press enter, it will automatically start the download of the files inside the models folder. And everything will be done automatically. You really don't need to do anything. And there you go, in around 2 minutes, 128 gigabytes were downloaded. So it was really, really fast. And now, just like with the local install, all you have to do is just click on this little button to refresh the list, then select the model that we want to use. Here, for example, if you want to use the same max sequence length, we're just going to increase that. And without even having to do some GPU layer optimization, with the GLM 4.5 Air, with everything maxed out, we are only using 162 gigabytes of VRAM. Yeah, only. So now if I click load, and there you go, after a few minutes, the model has been successfully loaded, and now if you just start a new chat, you can start using it as if this was running on your local computer. Now this model is like a thinking model, so it's gonna take a little bit more time to answer you because it first needs to like craft his thinking prompt and then it will answer your question. But that model is extremely powerful, it is really, really good, and you can definitely use this model to replace ChatGPT. It is really that good. So yeah, there you go. And there you go. This has been TextGen WebUI. And now you know everything that there is to know on how to run any local model on your own computer to either have an offline ChatGPT or for some spicy roleplay. And if you're interested in the last part, definitely wait for my next video, because you're really gonna love it. So that being said, definitely try this out yourself and have some fun. And there we are, folks. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you also so much to my Patreon supporters for supporting my videos. You guys are absolutely awesome. You people are the reason why I'm able to make these videos, so thank you so much. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.